So this video is for all the ATF agents in the audience, and I know some of you are out there based on what I've heard. This is not going to be attacking you or ranting. I just have 5 things that I want you to hear. The first one's very obvious. We're talking about pistol braces, and it's simply one word: don't. As you know, there's between 10 to maybe upwards of even 40 million of these devices out there, and someone is going to go to prison because you guys changed your ruling from what you initially said in both 2012 and 2014 to now what you're saying at this very moment in 2023. I get it. You made a mistake. You've basically acknowledged as such, but at this point, barn door's already open. Pandora's box is open. And what really troubles me, among many, many things, is that someone living in some sort of backwoods place, or they don't really check the internet, they're not watching these sorts of videos and this kind of content, someone's going to get arrested and have their life turned upside down because you guys changed your mind. Don't. Optional buyback. And I think this should be coming directly from your funding, not something that should be extra, because at the end of the day, I don't want the taxpayers to eat it any more than they have to. But I think that there should be an optional buyback program available to folks, and again, on a strictly optional basis, cannot emphasize that enough, who purchase these devices relying on your 2012-2014 rulings. I think that those folks are entitled to interest and maybe even damages, depending upon exactly the specifics of their scenario. I think that this also goes to FFLs, distributors, and folks within the industry, not to mention manufacturers who have relied on the letters that you put out in 2012 and 2014 when they scaled up and built around a business. Folks are going to lose their employment over this. Folks are going to be losing their lives one way, shape, or form over this, whether it's the civil issues caused by you changing a whole market, a whole industry, or whether or not it's the criminal issues that's coming about. But I think at the end of the day, some people are entitled to compensation that goes beyond the initial purchase price. And I think that you guys should recognize that this is on you. This whole situation's on you. Step up and do the right thing. Guys, this is super quick. Before we go on to number 3, please consider showing your support for the Second Amendment by clicking like. Leave us a comment below about what you think about these. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What would you do differently? As well as subscribing to our channel. It's the best way to help us grow. It's absolutely free. And of course, share with all your friends on social media, email, and all the other things you kids do these days. Thank you very much. And now on to number 3. Stop flip-flopping. There have been so many times, whether we're talking the Aikens accelerator, whether we're talking Tommy built, whether we're talking FRT triggers, whether we're talking bump stocks, whether we're talking pistol braces, where you guys came out and said something's good to go, or at a minimum, you certainly created the illusion of that. More on that in another video. And then, bam, you've changed your mind. The flip-flop not only puts people in a miserable situation when it comes to looking at potentially federal or state prison, but also wiping families out economically as well, because they built up a business on the basis of what your ruling was. Please, stop flip-flopping. I think this would be a lot easier for folks, including myself, to take, however we may disagree about the constitutionality of your actions, if at least it didn't have a twisting dagger coming in it of, first this is legal, now it's not. Just stop flip-flopping. Make up your mind on something, and please just stick to it. Apologize. I think there's really 4 groups that deserve an apology, and if I missed your apology, then please someone let me know in the comments, but otherwise, here's what I've got. I think you owe an apology to the folks who are going to have to be tasked to enforce this rule. I'm talking about the folks who are going to have to go raid FFLs, who are going to have to go take down distributors, who are going to have to potentially do things to put people in prison because you changed your mind. I can't imagine that everybody within the ATF supports this decision, and I can't imagine that this will be easy or square with everyone's conscience. I think that you need to recognize the fact that your decisions in flip-flopping have created this scenario, and along with everything else, I would really consider apologizing to ATF as well as other government employees at all levels of law enforcement and administration. I'd also strongly suggest that you consider apologizing, of course, it goes without saying, to the industry, the people I've mentioned several times before, who built up their entire business model around your 2012 and 2014 rulings, saying that these were okay. We're wiping out families, we're wiping out businesses, we're hitting not only some larger-ish businesses, but mainly, most of the gun stores I know, they're a lot smaller, they're mom and pop. They're wasting untold hours and stress at night trying to figure out what to do with this ruling. I think it would be fantastic if you took some responsibility and apologized to those folks. Likewise, I think you owe an apology to everybody who purchased these braces relying on your ruling. You're now, in essence, taking their property. And I get it. You gave some folks an out. And I say some folks an out because some folks, if you're living in a state where you're allowed to register an SBR, you can now register an SBR. I get it. It's free. There's even no engraving requirements. I get it. But not all of us want to do that in the first place. If we did want to do that, I'm sure many folks would have had no problem paying the $200. But instead, we're now being railroaded into either take the devices off, in which case, why did we buy them in the first place, number one, or number two, throw it on there and now we're subject to interstate travel rules and you name it. And of course, all that goes without saying that many folks who live in states where you cannot register an SBR legally, you're not going to be approving those Form 1s. Those folks are just out of luck at the end of the day, and now they have to sell their devalued possessions at a devalued price somewhere in the market. That's pretty rough, and I think you owe those folks an apology for relying on your 2012 and 2014 rulings. Lastly, I think you owe an apology to Americans. We want to see our government stand up for something, and we want to see you guys make the right calls. And we understand that you're going to make mistakes, and there has to be a mechanism for fixing them. And I get that. And I think that reasonable people get that. But there's a difference between being reasonable and doing it sometimes the way that you guys choose to do it. And I'm giving you the out of saying everybody makes mistakes, and I get that. But you could have done better on this, and I've outlined a few ways how you could have or how you still could moving forward. If you persist in doing what you're doing, and importantly, how you're doing it. If good folks wind up going to prison and someone unfortunately has to turn into a martyr or a poster child for why government agents should not be changing their mind on their rulemaking, I think that there's going to be some consequences down the line for the ATF and possibly more federal and state bureaus beyond that. I think that next time that there's a change in the political winds and a new administration comes in, we might see some major changes that current members and officials within the ATF may view as being highly detrimental to the mission and purpose of the ATF. I think that to the extent that you continue to act in a way that is maybe short-term advancing your political goals and agenda, I would submit to you that you are long-term undermining your same political goals and agenda by sparking the huge rebuke and backlash that we have seen swell up from coast to coast from both within the ranks of law enforcement and without. Take sensible actions on this. Think. There's a lot of people, myself included, who view that what you're doing is unconstitutional and wrong, but that doesn't mean that you can at least sway minds with the political middle ground. It doesn't mean that at least you can do something to run some damage control, to help everybody about what's going on, and again, the situation that you have 100% created by yourselves. If you fail to do it the wrong way, and if you persist the way that you are going, I think there may be some long-term consequences for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives someday. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, I'd invite you to please consider checking out some of our other great content. Once more, it's a way of helping the channel grow. I'll see you in the next one.